and check if they're eligible to apply to either scheme, whether to rectify their status or if they've been impacted, then compensation claim. That's the purpose of these sessions. We don't deal with anything else. We don't deal with reparation on this platform. And we don't deal with discrimination in any services or employment. Those are separate pieces of legislation that require separate approach and specialism. Just keep your audio off for me, please. Who's this one? Let me just see. I haven't got a name in NETSE. Can we have a name, please? Please change your name so we know who's on the call. And iPhone, can I have a name for iPhone, please? So iPhone, can you replace it with a name, please? We just want to make sure that we have a safe space for everyone.
Garrick is lost there. Okay, I'm dealing with it.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so just going back to this platform, the sole purpose of this platform is to really help individuals to understand the Windrush compensation scheme and status, and to see if they're eligible to apply for either rectifying their status if they haven't got the documentation to show, or if they've been impacted, then a claim for compensation. That is what this platform deals with, nothing else. We will give you the opportunity to raise questions after we present some information. And we'll be dealing with, firstly, the issue around rectifying your status and eligibility. And after we've done that, we'll be looking at 3 specific areas of the compensation claim. We'll be looking at the individual as the primary claimant making the claim. We'll be looking at close family claims, that those who are supported the primary claimant. And then we'll be looking at deceased estate claim for individual who have passed and the family member are acting on their behalf to make a claim. Those are the 3 main areas we'll be focusing on this afternoon. Firstly, it's important to understand Windrush, the timeline for Windrush. We say the timeline because Windrush started on a particular date and it runs to a particular date. So Windrush, the first generation of Windrush arriving in the UK, 1948. And subsequent generation or descendants will arrive continuously from that date up to 1988. So the timeline roughly gives you 1948 to 1988. That's the timeline for Windrush. Which makes sense that if you arrive 1999, 2000, you're outside Windrush and we cannot help you on this platform. Any query relating to that would be an immigration query. We focus solely on the Windrush compensation scheme. So firstly, just to check if people are eligible, we have to use the guidance from the Home Office. And the Home Office produced guidance for each of the claims, guidance for those who are applying as a primary claimant, guidance for those who are applying as close family to support the primary claimant, and guidance for the deceased estate for those family who are applying on behalf of their family estate. So each of the claim will have guidance that will help you to determine whether or not you can make that claim. So firstly, we talk about dates, and dates are important to establish eligibility. So the Home Office, in their guidance, states who can apply. You can apply if you came to the UK from a Commonwealth country before 1973. Your parents or your grandparent came to the UK from a Commonwealth country before 1973. But notice the point: yourself, your parents, or your grandparents would need to be in the UK settled by this date, 1973. It further says you came to the UK from any other country before December 1988 or 1st of January 1989 and are settled here. Settled mean you live here. You have settled status. Now, those dates are very important. And if you're outside those dates, then you fall outside of the scheme. 1973, from a Commonwealth country. And when we say Commonwealth country, the Home Office lists all the countries, the 56 Commonwealth country, and a further British overseas countries, bringing the total to 65 countries. 65 countries. They're all listed on the Home Office website. Okay. So we got the 56 Commonwealth country, and then we have 10 others. Okay. If you're not from any of the Commonwealth country, you can still be part of Windrush, provided that you were settled in the UK from any other country by the 31st of December 1988 or 1st of January 1989. Yeah, that is from the rest of the world, any other country outside the Commonwealth, as we mentioned. Yeah. And again, to emphasize, if you arrive in the UK 1991, you're outside the Windrush compensation scheme. If you're in that position, you would need to seek immigration advice. We don't give immigration advice on this platform. Although, when you visit our website, you will see organization that we signpost for immigration help. Can we please keep our audio off? Thank you. So let me repeat, to be eligible for the Windrush compensation scheme, you need to arrive in the UK from a Commonwealth country by 1973, whether yourself, your parent, or your grandparent. Any other country, you must be settled by the 31st of December 1988 or 1st of January 1989, settled in the UK. Now, that is the eligibility criteria for the Windrush schemes. We say Windrush schemes because there's a scheme to rectify your status. And we always encourage that is the first thing an individual should do is to check their status. And then the second thing, if you've been impacted because you did not have the necessary documentation to prove you have the right to be here, then the next bit of claim is about compensation. And when we talk about compensation, we will explain what that means and what it means to be impacted. So status is the first step. And the second step would be compensation if you've been impacted or suffer loss. And the whole purpose of these sessions is really to get more people to come forward and make claim. Whether that would be rectifying your status or whether that would be a compensation claim. That's exactly what these sessions is about. It's about helping individuals to understand the Windrush compensation scheme, check their eligibility, and then make a claim. Now, once you've checked your eligibility and you say, yes, tick, that's me, then the next step would be, how do I proceed with making the application? Okay. As we said, let me just put this person on mute. Thank you. As we said previously, that once you check your status and you're eligible to apply to either scheme, the next step is to make an application. And that may be where you need some help in making the application. Now, the Home Office provide guidance for application purposes. And we always suggest and recommend strongly that you read the guidance pertaining to primary claimants. You read the guidance because it's important that you follow the guidance in order for you to understand the different areas of claim that you can make and how are you going to present that, how are you going to make the claim. And when we say read guidance, we know that may not be as easy as you think. Not everybody can read the guidance themselves and follow the instruction to make the claim. So what we suggest is that you seek some help if you're not able to read through the guidance and follow the guidance. Seek some help. And when we say seek some help, in the chat, we have put the advocacy service that we offer. If you need some help with the application, then we suggest you reach out to Law, Liverpool Advocates for Windrush, who can help you with the application process. The application process is not an easy thing to do because it involves you going back many years to your situation, which is your life story, what has happened to you over many years. And it may be 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You have to go back and think about what has happened to you, how you lost your home, how you lost your job, what other impact has happened to you. And that may require you to be having conversation with somebody else. Because sometimes a lot of things is buried in our minds for many years that we didn't really want to talk about. And although we know that some of this can be traumatizing for many people, it is still important to get the information from the individual claimant. And that is why it is helpful that the claimant reach out to somebody who can assist and help them. And what that will do, it will help the claimant to remember certain things that has happened 30, 40 years ago. It will also enable the claimant to get a better understanding about what is meant by impact or suffer loss. So the Home Office also tell us about the type of loss that you need to put on paper that has affected you. I'm going to give you some examples of losses or impact as the Home Office tell us, and it will help you to understand what is meant by being impacted and suffer loss because I did not have the necessary documentation when I was asked to produce this documentation. I did not have it. And there are many reasons why you did not have it. You may have arrived in the UK as a child with family, and you've never had any passport, any documentation. So, what loss can you claim, or what losses will be part of your claim? So, you may be able to get compensation for losses relating to the following. I'm reading directly from the guidance. You may be able to get compensation for losses relating to employment immigration fees, housing, health, education, driving license, banking, daily life, for example, miss major family events because you could not travel. You didn't have any documentation, so you could not travel. Detention or removal. Some people were detained in detention centers for a period of time. Some people has been removed from the UK wrongly. Living costs, for example, rent, utilities, contribution for food, household essential, travel, and prescription fees. So, because you did not have any documentation to show you have the right to be living in the UK as a citizen, all these things, or some of those things, would have happened to you and your family. Let's take the first example, employment. So you've been working in a job for 5, 10, 15, 20 years or so. And suddenly, out of the blue, your employer come to you and say, Mr. Smith, can you bring your passport in tomorrow? I need to check if you have the right to be here in the UK and have the right to work. And you thought, but I've been working here for X period of time. Why do you need this? And the reason why the employer is doing this, because the government have asked the employers to do this check. They brought out new legislation that says that employer must check all employees have the right to work in the UK. Now, prior to that, there was no issue. There was no requirement. There was no law to say you could not work. But suddenly, there's a piece of legislation, I think it was 2012, and employers now have to follow this. And failure to follow this will be a heavy penalty fine for the employer. So the employer would not risk leaving you to continue working without seeing documentation. So he will say, kindly, I'm sorry, I've got to let you go, which means you lost your job. And let's just think about the impact that will have on an individual losing their job. That individual had a mortgage to pay. That individual have all the household bills relating to their home to pay. Now they have no job. The first thing that will happen is the mortgage lender, because you've missed 1 month, you've missed 2 months, and when you miss 3 months of not paying your mortgage, the lender is going to want to serve notice on you and take away your house, which means the lender will sell the house And if you're still owing money on the house because it hasn't been paid for, yes, you will still have a debt. Now just think about what that will do to an individual with family, children, responsibility. So it's not just affecting you now. It's, this decision, this issue is now affecting every member of your family. And so your son or your daughter that was preparing to go to university can no longer go to university because now you're almost what we would call you've been blacklisted. And you will not have any resource to public fund. And every time you try to do something that relates to public fund, you will come up with a brick wall because you haven't got the right documentation to show that you have the right to be here. Yeah? So you're no longer able to access NHS services, access council housing, all the thing that comes with bank accounts, all the thing that comes with, you know, your child applying for a driving license, all these things, which are just normal living things, suddenly become a massive issue. And just think about the stress, the anxiety, and the trauma that has now been inflicted on this family of 3-4. So now when the Home Office talk about what loss you suffer, you now have a better understanding of the loss that you've suffered that needs to be written on the application relating to your claim, will be your story. That is very important because the caseworkers who will receive your claim in the Home Office, when they start to read and they see, you know, about loss suffer, and they only see 2 lines, maybe 3 lines, maybe 4 lines, yeah? And there isn't sufficient information there, the chances are they will award you very little or maybe nothing at all. And so what we say, you know, it's important that you understand what it means suffer loss impacted. In addition to the point that we mentioned and the list that we read, we also like to emphasize that when people travel out of the UK and coming back into the UK, they experience difficulty at the airport with immigration officers. So immigration officers may detain them for a period of 30, 40, 50 minutes or so, and they would take them into a room and they will ask them a range of questions. And when they finish with you, they'll say, okay, you can go. So that time that you've been detained, if it exceeds 30 minutes, then that time is also need to be put on your claim, detention. And if that has happened to you several times over 20 or 30 years, then you need to put it down. And again, in conversation, some people don't even tell the rest of their family about these things. So other members of the family didn't know that happened. Yeah. So that is why it's important to have these conversations and talk with your family members. So we now have a claim. And the claim is for the primary claimant, the person that's been affected by the issues. When we say the claim, you got to remember that Windrush compensation scheme is on two separate claims. Firstly, to rectify your status. And some people, they haven't been affected. So all they need to do is just to rectify their status. And that's fine. Very quick process. Getting your documentation. But for other people, the other bit of the claim is what they are going through. In other words, the compensation bit of the claim. However, we always make this point. You need to evidence a lot of the questions, a lot of the points relating to what has happened to you. You need to evidence it. And we say that because you cannot just say something that didn't happen. You have to show to the Home Office, this has happened to you. When it comes to employment, you don't necessarily have to, find your employer who has gone out of business 20 or 30 years. You don't need to do that. So in order to find out whether you have worked in the UK for X amount of years, the record at the government office, Inland Revenue, will know what tax has been collected from Mr. Smith from 1959 to 1969, for example. So the record is there. DWP, National Insurance, again, evidence is there. So you cannot say that you worked for X amount of years in this country, and when they check, there is no record of you ever paying taxes in this country. So two very good agencies can evidence that you have worked in the UK. Inland Revenue, DWP. So let's just focus now on the application form. So you've got electronic version online, or you can use the paper copy. We talk about the guidance, and we emphasize, keep reading the guidance over and over before you begin to write things on the application. And we also suggest you use plain piece of paper and do a couple of drafts before you transfer that information to the actual application. Do a couple of drafts using the guidance. And when you have done the draft, ask somebody to have a look at it. Maybe another member of your family, or a good friend, or somebody who has already done this application and understand a little bit about it. Or reach out to the advocate and says, I have drafted my application. Can you have a look at this? Yeah. And again, a second eye looking at it might bring out other things that you have not included in your application. So you have the draft. The first part of the application is your personal information, your name, forename, surname, date of birth, just the normal personal information. Please use the information as it is written on your birth certificate. Exactly the spelling, no different. If the spelling is different, the Home Office will conclude that is not you. And that could be a fraudulent claim. It's not you. So your name must be as it's written on your birth certificate. If you're known by any other name, you could have had a name change, for example, then there's a space for you to put that information. So as you go through the application, and you've got to complete the application, every question needs to be answered. If a question is left unanswered, the Home Office will not process your application. The Home Office will not process your application, and there will be a delay coming back to you, right, to fill in that blank. Yeah. So we say to people, please make sure all of the questions are answered. And we say this because it is true that not every question may apply to you, but every question must be answered. And if a question is not applicable to you, all you need to do is to put N/A, not applicable, in that question box. Do not leave it blank. So as you go through the question and you fill out and you come to the final bit of your application, there's something at the bottom that asks you to read this carefully. And then I'm just pulling up, I've got the hard copy in front of me here. And this is page 20 of 20. You come to the final bit of your application, and it says declaration. Declaration. And there's a warning, yes? And this is what it says. Please tick here if you do not want to be contacted by the Home Office team making a compensation claim. That's fine. There's a box there. But the declaration reads, I confirm that to the best of my knowledge and belief, the information given in this application is correct. I understand that I may be liable to prosecution if I have wrongly or recklessly provide false information. So you have to sign and date. Here's the application. You have to sign and date the application and declare that all information that you've provided to the best of your knowledge is correct. And that is why it's important that when you're describing what has happened to you and giving your history, that to the best of your knowledge, you can verify these things. So you cannot put on your application something that did not happen, or something that you cannot prove or justify. Because that declaration asks you to make sure, to the best of your knowledge, everything that you put on the application is correct. So we've now completed the application as a primary claimant, and we have sent it off to the Home Office. And we will wait for the Home Office to get back to you. We did ask the Home Office how long it takes from the moment the application arrived to getting a response. And the last conversation we had went from 4 weeks to 6 weeks. I don't know where it stands at the moment, but you will get a response. And we know also that your application outstanding for over 12 months. So, we suggest that you give the Home Office a good 3 months or so. And if you've not heard anything, contact them and find out what's happening with your claim. So that is the primary claimant making a claim as an individual. Now I'm going to move on to close family who have supported the primary claimant. I'm going to invite Roland to come in and tell us who constitute close family and explain what a close family claim is about, and also to emphasize that making a close family claim does not have any impact on the primary claimant award or the money that that person will get. It is not impacted on the primary claimant at all. So don't be thinking if I make a claim as close family, I'm going to deny the other person and they will get less money. No. Separate, completely separate claim. So Roland, can you just tell us, please, about close family claim and the guidance tell us as to who constitute a close family claim, please.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone from wherever you are in the world. Attending from. Can you hear me okay, Garrett?
Yes, that volume is fine. Good, thank you.
Okay. All right. So Garrett just went through the eligibility criteria. We got eligibility and you got entitlement. And I'll just recap quickly. In order to be eligible to apply to the scheme, you would have had to enter the UK from a Commonwealth country before the 1st of January 1973, or you enter the UK before the 1st of January 1989 from any country. And please note it says any country. It does not say any country except Commonwealth countries. Obviously, 1st of January 1989 from any country, including Commonwealth country. Or you were born in the UK and your parent or grandparent came from a Commonwealth country. This one is often forgotten. You were born in the UK and your parent or grandparent came from a Commonwealth country, and there are different time periods. I'm not going to go into the specifics. There are some before 1973, or they were born here, etc., etc. You were born in the UK, your parent or grandparent came from a Commonwealth country. Also, you enter the UK before the age of 18 years old, and your parent and our grandparent came from a Commonwealth country. That's eligibility. Now, entitlement, you would have had to have your life impacted due to your inability to prove that you've got a right to be in the UK. Okay, and some of those would have been people who came to the UK before the 1st of January 1989, etc., etc. And they may have lived in the UK, left the UK for a while, and they may be stuck outside the UK. We know a number of them have been stuck outside the UK for months, and in some cases, years and decades as well. One particular case is a lady in Barbados that was born in the UK, and she has been stuck outside the UK, not for months, not for years, but decades. Okay? So many came from Commonwealth country before 1989, lived there for a number of years, traveled outside the UK, maybe back to the country from where they came, and they have been disallowed re-entry to the UK. In many cases, due to the incompetence of the British High Commission, whether it be in Kingston, Accra, with Nigeria, in the USA, wherever in the world. Gary went through a number of the heads of claims that you could have been impacted by. Could be loss of earnings due to your employer not being happy with your documentation. You had issues getting student grants, student loan, or you may have had issues down at the benefit office where you're trying to get some dollar, universal credit, or whatever term they were using at that time. You have had issues using the NHS, signing up as a doctor. You may have had issues getting your driving license, issues opening a bank account, etc., etc. That list I've given you there are just an indication. It's not exhaustive. So, and he spoke about primary claimant and the deceased estate claim. Now, I'm now going to speak about the close family member claim. Now, there's absolutely no difference between a primary claim and a deceased estate claim. Absolutely no difference at all between the primary claim and the deceased estate claim, except that that individual that would have been eligible and entitled as a primary claimant is now deceased. That's a deceased estate claim. A deceased estate claim, so to speak, is someone is a primary claimant that is deceased. That's a deceased estate claim. And in that situation, because that individual is deceased, then the next of kin of the deceased individual or the executor of the estate would submit that claim. In such a scenario where if there is no will left by the deceased individual, then it has to go through probate. So you may have to get documentation signed, etc. The process that would be a process in its own right. You fill in form H205 or PA1A form, establish that you are the daughter, the son, etc., etc., and you've got a right to establish you've got a right to represent the estate, so to speak. But I'm not going to go into that. And I must say as well, in some cases, like you've got individual who came here, lived here for a while, probably traveled to Jamaica and passed away in Jamaica or Nigeria or whatever. In such a situation where the individual passed away outside the UK, part of the probate process is that the Windrush scheme, compensation scheme, they would need to establish that that individual has actually passed, because they don't want claims to be submitted and then months or years later they found out that that individual that said they were told that he's passed was sailing around the Caribbean on a cruise. So what they want in such a situation is a statement. I'm not going to use Latin term. They're going to need a statement from a solicitor in Jamaica, Ghana, USA, or wherever that the individual passed away, stating that I, Mr. Solicitor, I, Mrs. Solicitor, or whomever has checked and this individual has actually passed, was a funeral, etc., etc. I'm making that statement. And to go with my statement, here is the death certificate. That will incur cost, and that cost, the Home Office, the Windrush compensation scheme, will cover up to a maximum of £1,500. Hopefully, they will increase that in the future, because in some cases that may not necessarily cover the cost. But yes, the Home Office will cover up to £1,500. The scheme will cover up to £1,500 to cover the probate cost. It can either be you pay the money up front and then you invoice the Home Office later, give them the receipt or whatever, or you can get the solicitor to either whatever term, solicitor, lawyer, whatever term you use, to invoice the Home Office first, and then they carry out the work, statement, death certificate, etc., etc. Now, close family member claim. You can apply to the scheme as a close family member if you're a close family member of the deceased individual or the primary claimant, and you were lawfully in the UK when that individual was going through the issue, the struggle, saga, whatever term you want to use. Now, as it is at the moment, that's the situation. We are campaigning on that those outside the UK, campaigning for those close family members outside the UK to be able to make claims as well. Those family members outside the UK that has never been to the UK, we are campaigning for them to be able to apply to the scheme. So, says as it is at the moment, those outside the UK that have never, close family members outside the UK that have never entered the UK, as is at the moment, they can't make a claim. However, if you are in the UK while close family member, you're going through the issue and you were lawfully in the UK and you're now outside the UK, you can make a claim. Yeah? So please note the difference there. If you have never entered the UK, never lived in the UK, was not in the UK at any point in time, and has not got right to be in the UK, while the individual was going through their issues, then you can't make a claim. Never enter the UK. However, if you were in the UK when the individual was going through their struggles and you're now outside the UK, you can still submit a claim. Okay? You don't need to still be in the UK as a close family member. So when we say close family members, who are we talking about? We're talking about your great-grandaunt or second cousin removed. No. There are specific cohort. There are specific group of people we're talking about, specific group of close family members that we're talking about that can submit a close family member claim. The assumption is made that in order to make a claim as a close family member, you've got to fit into those eligibility criteria that Garrick mentioned earlier on. Coming from a Commonwealth country, 1973, came to the UK before the 1st of January 1988 and all that. Not necessarily as a close family member. And as I explained, you will understand why you do not need to have come from a Commonwealth country or fit into those eligibility criteria that Garrett mentioned earlier on for the primary claimant and the deceased individual. You could have come from Japan or China, which aren't Commonwealth countries. So the specific group, specific close family members that can apply to the scheme on the back of a primary claimant claim or a deceased individual claim to speak are as follows. 1, wife or husband of the primary claimant or a deceased individual that is eligible or entitled. 2, parents of primary claimant or deceased individual. Thirdly, children of the primary claimant or deceased individual. Fourthly, siblings, brothers and sisters of the primary claimant or the deceased individual. And fifthly, anyone that lived in a relationship with the primary claimant or the deceased individual while they were living in the UK, while they were going through the struggle. And those close family members, as I said, all the way from parent to wife or husband, children, siblings, and lived with in a relationship for more than 2 years, you would have had to be lawfully be in the UK while the individual was going through their issues. And there are no numbers. It didn't say 2 or 3 close family member or 2 or 3 brothers. So if an individual is deceased and submitting a deceased estate claim, the individual mother and father could still be alive. In fact, I've got one such case. Mother and father is still alive. They've got a number of siblings. They could have 7 siblings, 7 brothers and sisters. That individual could also have 6 or 7 or 8 children. That individual situation, deceased individual situation, could have lasted many years, that they could not work, couldn't get any housing benefit, etc., etc. As a result of, or consequent of them not being able to work, etc., they ended up being divorced. So let's say it lasted for 7 years, 8 years. In the 3rd or the 4th year, they got divorced. A year or 2 later, before this individual passed, they got involved in another relationship and lived with this individual for 2 years. So they've got a wife or husband that they lived with while they had the issues continue, relationship broke down, got divorced, etc., got involved in another relationship, live with that individual for over 2 years or more. So in this case, what sort of scenario we got here now? And what I'm going to tell you here near enough mirror a case that I'm working on at the moment. So in such case, thus a deceased estate claim would be submitted for the deceased individual. And we always suggest, whether it's a primary claim or a deceased estate claim, wait until you get to the point where there is an offer from the Home Office before you start, from the scheme, before you start submitting the close family member claim. Because you don't want to be submitting all these claims and you get a nil offer. Because by default, if it is a nil offer, then for the primary claim or the deceased claim, then there's got to be no claim for the close family members. Because I'm going to use the term loosely, they have not accepted liability. Okay? The scheme is not, it's an ex gratia scheme, so it's not really a compensation scheme, so to speak. The term compensation is used loosely. It's a goodwill gesture scheme, so to speak. So when I said accept liability, again, I'm using that term loosely. So at the point where an offer is made, even if it's at the lowest end of the impact on life, which is 10,000, and the impact on life is tier 1, 10,000, tier 2, 20, tier 3, 40, goes all the way up to tier 5, which is 100,000 pounds. Okay, and it depends on the level of impact. Impact on life is one heads of claim. You got loss of earnings, benefit, etc., etc. 10,000 to 100,000 for impact on life. Impact on life is how you have been impacted emotionally, anxiety, inconvenience, etc., etc., whether you're the primary claimant or the close family member or deceased estate claim. That is how impact on life is applied. So back to the close family member claim. So an offer is made for the deceased individual, for the deceased estate. At that point, said this individual had a number of children before he passed. 7 children. All 7 children can submit a close family member claim. This individual also has got 8 brothers and sisters. All 8 brothers and sisters can submit a claim. Mother and father is fortunate to still be alive. Mother and father can also make a claim. His wife was going through the struggle, or is now his widow, or former wife, because they divorced before he passed. She can also submit a claim. as a close family member claim. Now, also, he did get involved in another relationship before he passed, or she did. That partner also can submit a close family member claim. So we've got number of children, 7 children, 8 siblings. We're talking 15 close family member claim. Mother and father, 17. Wife, widow, 18. Person that they lived with is 2 years or more prior to them passing, 18. And what you will also find, and as Garrick said earlier, the amount of close family member claims will not impact the amount of the deceased. So deceased estate claim would have received 150 or whatever thousand due to what that deceased individual went through, can't work, etc., etc. In one particular case, the one I'm talking about, they got over 280,000. Just to give you some indication of the numbers. And numbers, the close family member claims at the moment usually average 20,000. However, depending on how those in the close family members were impacted, please do not assume that it's only the primary claimant that would have been severely impacted. They could have seen the father, the mother going through a lot of things, and the close family members were that impacted that they have to go to see, get counseling, see the doctor, etc., etc. And they themselves, in some cases, we've got cases where that individual, those individuals, close family member, could have had a nervous breakdown. In one particular case that I'm assisting one individual, that close family member was that impacted because in this particular case, not the one, this is estate case, this individual, close family member, daughter of the primary claimant, end up in a mental institution and is currently still in a mental institution because in that scenario, right, mother came from Jamaica, 60s, worked in the NHS for a number of years, right? And 2012, 2011, lost her job when she already got a new job. That was when about the hostile environment was at its peak, so to speak. Documentation was asked for. She did not, your employer was not happy with the documentation. In fact, there was a misspelling in her name. There was a K where there should be a C, a C. Sorry, K where there should be an H. So she was called Rickard, and Home Office chose that Rickard is not Rickard, it should be Richard, etc., etc. As a result of that misspelling of her name, when the employer called the Home Office said, the computer says, no, you're not allowed to work in the UK, she's not allowed to work in the UK, etc., etc. That individual lost her job, couldn't pay her mortgage, sold her house. At the time, she had a 4-bedroom house, 3 adult children were living with her, also her grandchildren. One of the adult child was going to university. All the others lost their home. As a result, his grandchildren ended up in Trinidad, I think. Other one ended up in Israel. Family was split up. The daughter seeing her losing her 2 children, slipped in, had a nervous breakdown, slipped into depression, ended up in a mental institution, and is still in the mental institution as we speak. In that particular situation, the way the impact of the daughter, she being a close family member, she may end up on the impact on life element of the scheme, as of claim, she may get a higher compensation than the primary claim. Okay, so let's get back to close family members and numbers, number of close family members. So yeah, this particular individual, deceased individual, number of children, 6, 7, 8, number of siblings, mother and father can claim, the wife, ex-wife can claim, or former wife, or the term want to use, can claim, and the partner that he lived with for 2 years or more in the relationship. So we're talking about 17, 18 claims here, yeah? And this is an actual situation. And what we discovered along the way in this situation, while these claims are going through, one day the Home Office called the mother of the deceased individual and said, based on your statement, we have identified you to be a primary claimant as well. So in that situation, what is happening now, that the close family, the mother has already submitted a close family member claim. The estate was compensated, triggered all these close family member claims. Mother submitted her close family member claim, and now she is about to submit a primary claim in her own right. What that will do in a situation like that, it will trigger another set of close family member claim. These children, 7 children that the deceased had as siblings, is the mother and father children, deceased individual mother and father children. So it trigger another set of close family member claims. So these 7 children, the mother gonna submit a primary claim, and these 7 children is gonna submit another set of close family member claim, making these children of mother and father and the sibling of the deceased individual got 2 close family member claims. Also along the way, and I'm not saying this just to make a point, this is actually what has happened. Also along the way, they discover that one of the children, the son of the deceased individual, was threatened with deportation and has been harassed for a number of while, was harassed for a number of years by these go-home vans that were going around Brixton, doors getting knocked and so on. Consequently, he has now got a close family member claim. And his mother, which is the deceased wife, can submit a close family member claim. The son has got his primary claim, his close family member claim already. He has now got a primary claim. It's going to trigger another set of claims. His siblings can claim, make a close family member claim, and his mother can make a close family member claim. Also along the way, and I'm not just saying this as well, again, one of the deceased individual, which was trigger all these claims, one of his sister was threatened with deportation as well, trigger in another set of claim. Likewise, we have discovered that the wife was put up in a hotel, etc., etc., and when she was in the hotel, she too was threatened with deportation, triggered another set of close family member claim, not just with her children, but she has got sisters and brothers as well. Right? And this is a live claim, situation. Not saying it to make a point. This is what is actually happening at the moment. So from that, I hope you understand that from one claim, you can trigger a number of claims, not only close family member claim, but also you may discover additional primary claims along the way. I usually say, well, not only usually say, it's actually a fact. You will find in many families, you will find that one individual that is going to elect themselves as the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper that is the one that everyone has got to go to for will, documentation, because they have elected themselves as the family's accountant, the family's bookkeeper, and everything you've got to go to that individual. In this, making these claims, these close family member claims, it will do the disadvantage not only the close family members, the primary claimant and the gatekeeper themselves. So what I always suggest is that as soon as decide that you're gonna make a claim, especially with a deceased estate claim, you start speaking to each other. We start speaking to each other because each individual will have a bit of information that will slot into the jigsaw, so to speak, and create the whole picture of the whole landscape, so to speak, that we can have a better understanding of what has gone on. Because father may travel to Jamaica or Nigeria or wherever, one particular individual went to the airport to pick up that individual, and he was stopped at the airport for half an hour and more, was questioned and so on and so forth. By the time he get back to the house, he's not going to be telling the other siblings, the other children, etc., what actually went on at the airport. He's going to share it in the car with the one that actually picked him up at the airport. By the time he reach back to the house, he's going to be talking about the food from Nigeria, the bami and so on from Jamaica, etc., the mango from Barbados and so on. And you may not have heard that story. That is why it's good to bring the family together, all the siblings, etc., and discuss the whole situation of submitting the claim to the Windrush compensation scheme in order that you can get all these different stories and slot them together and get a better picture of what has gone on over the years. Because as an individual, you may not know the full story of what this individual experienced, whether it's a deceased estate, especially in the case of a deceased estate claim. It's not the time to be say we're not going to call this one because he's Rasta, or we don't like the clothes he wear, which church he go to, and so on. After the claim is submitted, you will have the opportunity, or we will have the opportunity to go back to start having those old individual prejudice. I suggest is put those prejudice aside, and if that is the time to have a Zoom meeting, invite each and everyone that is involved, all the brothers, all the sisters, everyone that is possibly would be eligible to make a close family member claim. We are living in the 21st century. Have a Zoom meeting. It's no time to be saying, oh, he live in Ghana, he live in Nigeria, whatever excuse we can find. Invite each and every one and have that discussion. That is how we're gonna get the information, because first thing we usually do is establish the story, and I use the term story loosely. I came from Nigeria in 1961. I lived there until 1975. In 19, whenever this happened, etc., and it's about the sea. Make it contiguous, make the story connect. One follow each other. Right in chronological order. It's not a dissertation. Keep it simple and straightforward. It's not about quantity of information, it's about quality. Once you are presented the story, so to speak, and I'm not saying go and make up a story, what happened, your statement, then we can evidence, go seeking the evidence for it, where we was working when he came here, etc., etc. Okay, my throat is getting a bit dry. I'm going to hand back to Garrick at this point. Just before I go, earlier when I mentioned you do not need to have come from a Commonwealth country in order to make the application. You don't need to fit into that eligibility criteria that Garrick mentioned earlier on. The reason why I say that is that you could have come from a Commonwealth country, could have come from Zimbabwe, Commonwealth country, or you, but however, you married to someone that did not come is not from a Commonwealth country. They are married to a Chinese, okay? And I deliberately say Zimbabwe and not Jamaica, Barbados, and so on. But I've come from Botswana and Namibia. The reason why I'm mentioning those countries, because there's a misconception out there that the scheme is a Jamaican Caribbean scheme. That is certainly not the case. There are many people from the continent that are, when I say continent, I mean Africa, from the African diaspora, that are impacted. Also Indians, Bangladeshis, etc., etc. Commonwealth, British Commonwealth country, that's the background we're talking about. And especially for those people that were born in the UK. If you are born in the UK and your parent or grandparent came from a Commonwealth country, you should be researching the Windrush scheme, finding out about what the Windrush scheme is about, and inform yourself to the stage or to the level where you can ask relevant questions. Please do not act based on assumption. In many cases, when I say the Windrush scheme, I'm hearing, oh, I was born in the UK, I've got a British passport, so I'm being shut down. That does not cut it. You could have been born in the UK, got a British passport from day one, and it could have been impacted. And you're eligible to apply to the scheme. It could have been impacted, and you would be entitled to compensation. As we speak now, there is a lady in Barbados that has been stuck there from 1977, 74, whenever it is. 5 children there, married there, etc., etc. Numerous cases like that. get the information, please. Engage, have the discussion, engage with us or other representatives, find out about the scheme. I was posting while earlier on, prior to me start speaking, I was posting some guidance note in the chat. There are 5 different guidance notes. There are guidance notes for each categories of the scheme, for the primary claim, the deceased estate claim, the close family member claims. But we also got 2 other guidance notes, and these 2 guidance notes are guidance notes for the decision makers. These are what those people that are making the decision whether or not you're entitled to compensation or status, so to speak. These are what they should follow. 106 pages or 107 pages for the compensation guidance, and 56 pages, I think, for the status guidance. As for those people who came to the UK for the 1st of January 1973, lived there, left the UK for more than 2 years, consequently losing their indefinite leave to remain or the indefinite leave to remain lapse. They can now apply for a returning resident visa to return to the UK if they've got strong and continuous ties to the UK that we can elaborate on. Or they were born in the UK, because as we speak now, I know of individuals that were born in the UK 1989, 1990, and had issues getting a British passport. Met a gentleman from his mother is Ugandan, his father is Nigerian. He was born 1990. To date, he has not got a British passport. You being born in the UK does not make you a British citizen by default. There your peer goes by, you get your citizenship, even in many cases, due to your parents. They resolve their British apply registered in 1948 Immigration Act as a British citizen, etc., etc. Or are they still living on their indefinite leave with the Nigerian, Ugandan, or Jamaican passport that they came here with in the 60s or 70s or whatever? That can impact those that were born in the UK citizenship. And they may never had any of those issues. They may have born in the UK, all of get the British passport, everything is okay. Still have issues. There's one particular blogger a couple of weeks ago, born in the UK, everything in the UK, British all through and through. Met a gentleman in Jamaica, lived in Jamaica, her partners in Jamaica, etc., etc. When she travels to Jamaica, she take all her university and college certificates with her because she's looking at jobs, seeking a job in Jamaica, seeking opportunities, employment in Jamaica. Returning from Jamaica a few weeks ago, they saw it with all these documentation. They did not believe that she's British. It wouldn't make any sense to them that she was traveling from Jamaica with all these documentation. Something wasn't right. She was delayed at the airport for 2 hours. This is what Garrick was talking about. This half an hour or more being delayed at the airport can trigger a claim. As I said earlier on, my throat is getting dry now. So if you need any clarification or elaboration, I'm here. Back to you, Gary, please.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Roland. Quite a lot of information, Roland, has just presented to us for close family claim. Before I move on, let me just find out if there are any questions out of anything that's been said that we need any clarification. So we were focusing on the close family claim. So is there any question on close family claim or even the primary claimant before I move on to anything else? Mimi, if you just keep your eye in the chat for me, please. If there's any question posed in the chat, you can just bring it to our attention. So any question on close family claim? I noticed the point that Roland did emphasize, that we should get the green light from the primary claimant. The offer has been made, and once the offer has been made, that's a green light for you to submit close family claim, not before. All right. So once the offer is made to the primary claimant, you then can submit your close family claims, whatever number that is. There's another point that Roland did not mention when he spoke about the close family claim. And I'm going to just give you a couple of additional points. So, Roland referred to the guidance for close family and for deceased estate, and I refer to guidance for each of those claims. It's important that we read the guidance over and over several times. And if we don't understand the guidance, please seek out some additional help from somebody or from the advocates that you can get some help. So, close family member claim under the age of 18. So, all information that Roland had said applies to individual as an adult, but under the age of 18, this is what the guidance states. If you're under the age of 18 and making a claim, you will need a parent or a guardian, someone with parental responsibility, to send a claim on your behalf. So we know that children, for example, do care for family members as young carers. And so, you know, once you're under the age of 18, you cannot make that claim of your own right. You would need somebody to actually do that. So, you know, a parent or a guardian, someone with parental responsibility to send the claim in if you're under the age of 18. The other point I need to mention, to which Roland did not mention, it's about lack of capacity. And that's about your mental state, the inability to actually function. And then you would require some help with that. So if a claimant lacks capacity, they're unable to take decision. A person who has the power of attorney, this is the legal authority to act on behalf of that person, and you must have this in writing. You cannot just say you have it. It must be written down in writing that you have that power of attorney. And there are documentation that you can get in order to get that document signed and witnessed legally through the proper legal channel. So if you lack capacity, over the claimant financial affairs can send a claim on their behalf where there is no power of attorney, and listen to this carefully, where there is no power of attorney, a deputy or guardian, the controller of the controlled claim financial affair, can send a claim to on behalf of. If the claimant is outside the UK, a person who has the equivalent power may send the claim in. So again, if you're in the UK or if you're outside the UK, that same authority is required. One form should be filled in for each person. If you're part of a family, each member of the family must fill in their own compensation claim. So capacity is quite important. The Home Office does have the vulnerable team, and you know that's for individuals that require more assistance and support. And we do know that the vulnerable team are helpful because we have referred people into that team, and they've been very helpful, probably better than the rest of the compensation team. So please reach out, if you need to make contact to the vulnerable people's team. They have a separate contact number, and you can get that from the Home Office guidance, it's there. So let me just repeat that about capacity. If a claimant lack capacity and they're unable to take decision, a person who has the power of attorney, that legal authority to act on their behalf over the claimant, that is their financial affairs. So they would send the claim in. They would be the one responsible for making that claim. Where there is no power of attorney, a deputy or a guardian controller with control over the claimant financial affair can send a claim on behalf of that person. Yeah. Very important. Again, all this information is in the guidance, and it also tell you in the guidance how to fill in the close family claim. Yeah. And again, we're encouraging more people should come forward and fill in and get family claims, because as we said, if an offer has been made to the primary claimant, that should give you the green light to proceed with the claims, whichever number of claims that we said there is no fixed number, as Roland mentioned, and it will not affect the money that the primary claimant will be getting. Roland, you got your hand up?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify something. With the close family member claim, there are two elements to it. There is, there is impact on life and there's living expenses. Impact on life is what you, the individual, the close family member, how you're impacted due to what you saw your close family member, whether it be the mother, father, the primary claimant went through, and how you're impacted emotionally, anxiety, stress, etc., etc. Probably having to go and see a doctor or a counselor due to how your mental health is impacted. That is the impact on life. There's also living expenses. Because the primary claimant and the deceased individual couldn't work, you may have had to support them financially. If you're locked outside the UK, you may have to send money to them by MoneyGram or Western Union or whatever. If they're in the UK, you may have had to give them money to go into homeless shelter, or you may have taken them in. And as a result of you taking them in, they're living at sofa surfing. You have to wash for them, etc., etc. Your food cost, etc., may have gone up. So that the living cost element of it, you can make a claim for that as well. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank
And
us.
yeah, just before you go, we've got about 7 minutes before we hit
Yeah,
10 to around about 10 to or 5 to at the latest. We're gonna make the announcement, House of Commons,
yes,
etc.
yeah, that's okay. I'll come back to that.
Yeah,
So
and just before you go, I've got a couple of announcements that you aren't aware of, like the event in Canada and so on. Okay.
okay, all right.
Thanks.
Yeah. So you know, the close family claim, which we are encouraging more people to actually come forward and make those claims. And as I mentioned, once the primary claimant claim as an offer, whatever offer that is, then you should submit your close family claims. Now, there's a minimum amount of information that's required. The guidance says there's a minimum amount of information that you need for your claim. This means that you must fill in your personal detail in section 2, make a claim for compensation, one or more categories, fill in section 4 on the compensation, fill in the declaration page and ensure you sign the declaration form. If you do not provide the information, we will contact you and ask you for this, but this may delay your claim. And as I mentioned before, try to get the information on your claim at the very first time you submit the claim. Make sure all information is there. Because if they have to come back to you for further information, that is a delay in your claim, and that will take longer. And again, I'm going from the guidance that is provided. It also said, a document to support your claim. If you can give us the information, evidence we ask, it will help us to decide your claim. However, if you don't have the evidence for a particular category, please don't worry, as we will try to help you to get this. Yeah. So again, you notice, if you've got the evidence, please submit it. And if you haven't got the evidence and evidence needs to be sought, the Home Office said they will help you to get that, because they've got their government system that they can get information from. And Roland, just before I come to you, Roland mentioned about the impact. So when we talk about mental health and trauma, and he gave example of people who are still being in hospital as a result of a mental health condition, who have experienced the trauma, and some people have gone into hospital and has come out, been treated and has come out, and are treated by their GP after they come out of hospital. What we say, if you require any evidence of your medical, your mental health, your physical health, any evidence that you require to support your claim, you do not have to pay for a report. You can get a free evidence from your GP, which will give you the patient summary, what is on your record, and that will tell the Home Office what medication that you're on. It will also have information of, when you are referred to a particular consultant for a particular health issue. That evidence will be on your patient record. So do not have to pay for any medical evidence, because that will cost you 60 to 70 pounds if you were to ask for a specific medical report from your doctor. That's not required. The reception, you don't have to see your doctor. You go to your practice, and the reception will be able to print that and give you that information without any charge. Roland?
Ignore that, and that's a legacy.
Okay, that's fine. So again, we know that is the case where many people fail to put enough information about the trauma that they've experienced. Not just themselves, their children, other family member who has suffered as a result of what has happened to them. I gave you the example of individual losing their job, losing their home, and then the impact of all of that onto a family. And then the family is split up because other members of the family don't have big enough accommodation. So you've got two people going one place and another person go another place, and family members or friends having to help that individual and provide a place for that individual to stay. And Roland mentioned the fact that feeding them and their annual costs, running household bills, has just escalate as a result of that. Gas, electric, food, phone, all these things have changed as a result of you supporting an individual with their situation. And all of this will make part of your claim. And this is why it's important that when you draft that claim form on paper, right, before you complete the actual paper copy, whether electronic or the physical paper copy claim form, before you submit it, right, you need somebody to have a look at it, right? Cast your eye over it, get somebody to have a look at it to make sure that, the information, that you're giving, you literally covering the 40 years or the 30 years or whatever period of time that this has happened to you. You're covering that period. And Roland mentioned if we can have some sort of chronology, right, from the starting point as when you lost your job and what has happened, or the starting point of when you were not permitted to, even get to the High Commissioner office in whichever country, right? Start with some date, some chronology, that at least the story is making some sense, and that is what, the Home Office want to see. Yeah, they want to see your story. Yeah, what has happened to you over this period of time, and you've got to emphasize, the impact, because the impact is where the claim is going to give you the award. No impact, no claim. Yeah, so impact and losses is what's going to determine the offer that will be made to you. Yeah, and we stressed this before, where there's a lack of information on your impact or your losses, then the decision that will be taken, you will probably get the very minimum award if you get any award at all. So, that is why we keep saying it's not just a couple of lines. Yeah, this is your story. And we're talking about years. So you have to tell your story. We don't want a thesis, but you've got to tell your story so that it is readable and it's convincing that has happened to you. And we've said again, at the end of that, you have to declare at the end of the form that the information that you're giving is correct to the best of your knowledge. So we don't want you to be making up story that is not true. It is your story. It's what has happened to you and your family over this period of time. And you want to capture that on paper. So when the Home Office receive this, they're able to understand the trauma that you've gone through and able to give you appropriate award for what has happened to you, your losses, etc. Okay. So what we've done this afternoon, we've covered eligibility criteria. We've covered the primary claimant making the claim, the individual. We've covered close family claims. We've covered deceased estate claim. And we also emphasize about the vulnerable people's team. The vulnerable team is there to help individual with issues associated with vulnerability, whether that be disability issues, physical or mental. That team is there to help you. Okay? So please use that team, reach out to them. In addition, in the chat, you will find information on the two websites that we've put in the chat right at the start of our session, justiceforwindrushgenerations.co.uk, Liverpool Advocates for Windrush.org that deals with the advocates and help you with your claim. And Roland has also put in the chat the guidance, each guidance for the claim. Again, if you visit either of those websites, you will find all the information in one place. It will be there, right? Go to our website and you'll find the information. Who is eligible? We'll then break down each of the claim, and all the guidance information is there for you to consult at your own convenience. These sessions are designed to help you to come forward and submit claims. Yeah. We want more claims to be submitted. Once you understand and you know you're eligible, then please submit your claims. We don't know how long the Windrush compensation scheme will remain open. It will not be an indefinite thing. It could change. Yeah, it could close in 12 months, 2 years, 3 years. We don't know. Okay? So while we have the claim at the moment, we want you to submit your claim. Okay? We're campaigning to get improvement to the scheme, but as it is at the moment, we're working what we have. And finally, if you want more information, you go straight to .gov.uk/Windrush compensation scheme, and it'll take you straight to the government home office website, guidance, etc. So just before bring Roland on to give us our what's on forthcoming events, is there any question that needs to be asked before I do the what's on? You notice there is Roland's telephone number and contact in the chat. Should you need some help after this call, please use it, reach out. And again, as I said, if you can't remember everything, just remember two websites, justiceforwindrushgenerations.co.uk and liverpooladvocatesforwindrush.org. Those two websites are there to help you. Whether you're in the UK or you're outside the UK, you've got access to that information. And each of those are free information. There is no charge for any help and support. However, when you see our website, you will notice there's a donate button where individual can donate. So if you receive your claim and you want to make a donation to Justice for Windrush Generation, visit our website and you can do it via our website. Roland, I'll bring you in now for the forthcoming events, please.
Yes, I bring a few things to your attention. Firstly, on this Saturday coming,
20th of April.
20th of April, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., we'll be in Bristol for the Windrush Compensation Scheme International Forum, Bristol. You can join us on Zoom with this same link that you used today, but we would rather see you in person there on the day. So if you're in the Bristol area, please join us. Or if you've got friends in Bristol, please join us. The Home Office, the Windrush Compensation Scheme Community Engagement Team will be there. We will also be having a round table. We will be discussing the scheme, eligibility, entitlement for both compensation and status. If you're outside the UK, you came to the UK before the 1st of January 1989, lived there, and you want to apply for a returning resident visa, etc., or you were born in the UK and have an history, etc., that's a day that will be an event you can attend physically or virtually via Zoom or YouTube. This Saturday again as well, if you got friends or relatives in Canada, in New Brunswick, in Moncton, there will be the Black Renaissance Conference Summit there from on April the 19th, which is Friday the 19th, and Saturday the 20th. We will have an associate there with Windrush display, talking about the Windrush scheme, etc., etc. You can engage them. As I said earlier on, the impact is across the world. So if you know anyone in New Brunswick, whether if they're with Commonwealth background, whether they be Nigerian, Namibian, etc., etc., if you got any sort of Commonwealth background, then they can see a colleague there. It's an Eventbrite. If you Google Black Summit New Brunswick, then you should come close to It's an Eventbrite. In addition to that, on the 22nd of June, we will be in Ipswich for the Windrush Forum there. 22nd of May, we will be in the House of Commons for the Windrush Manifesto Rally. And we've been doing this for a couple of years now to get changes to the Windrush compensation scheme. This one is sponsored by Sir Peter Bottomley from the Conservative Party, and hopefully there will be other members of the Conservative Party. Well, not even the Conservative Party. Members of the government will be there on the day. In addition to that, this Thursday, there will be a debate in the House of Commons on the post office scheme, as well as the Windrush compensation scheme. Just got a bit of information yesterday. As many of us that are impacted by a Windrush, hopefully will turn up on the day. And just another one that's just outside Windrush. It's not quite Windrush, but it will impact quite a number. It's quite relevant to a number of Windrush descendants and generations. If you have ever worked in the UK for a short period of time, in some cases, not all cases, even when you have worked here for a year, it is possible to get some pension proportionately to the amount of national insurance contribution that you paid. It's possible to get some pension from the UK. Wherever you came from in the world, worked here for a number of years, in some cases, even if you've only worked for 1 year, it may be possible to get some pension from the UK. A telephone number is there. I've been doing it since 2013. Anything else that needs to be advertised, to be announced,
Yes.
Gary, can
One more. Yeah, one more. Could you mention GAC rally for June, please?
The GAC rally for June, that's the reparation rally. It's going to be on the 12th of June, House of Commons again. We will be there from about 12 noon. We'll be lobbying our MPs, putting our green forms in, calling out our MPs, talking to them about reparation, asking them to support us on reparation. Then we'll take a break at about 4 p.m. At 5 p.m., we will go into one of the committee rooms in the House of Commons, and we will be discussing reparation and reparation specifically. For those of us who are interested in reparation, sometimes people come to these chats and they want to talk reparation when we're specifically talking Windrush compensation. That will be an opportunity to discuss reparation. And there have been quite a number of changes over the past year or two on reparation. Church of England, Lloyds of London, Church of England has put up 100 million. I think it's about to be increased to $1 billion. But there are many things around reparation that is going on. So Global African Congress reparation event, 12th of June, House of Commons. It is an Eventbrite. Well, will be an Eventbrite soon. Google it, it's there. That is reparation specific. Garrick, back to you, please.
And that reparation event is sponsored by Bell Ribialo Addy. So we'll put that information on the Eventbrite shortly. Just make sure you have the date, 12th of June. Thank you very much for that, Roland. Mimi, can I just bring you in, please? Can you hear me, Mimi?
Yes, I can hear you, Gary. Good afternoon. I just wanted to take a few minutes of your time, well, just maybe 1 minute, just to highlight my campaign to sell merchandise for the Windrush Act. So yes, for all the people on the Zoom today, I'd like to direct you, please, to the campaign that's going on for a Windrush Act, and the Windrush Act looks at righting the wrongs in society against people of African descent, in terms of education, health, work, the criminal justice system, and to promote community cohesion. So if you would like to support that campaign, I'd like to direct you to my website, I've put it in the chat, but I'll just mention it again. It's shoptita.com. So it's very easy. SHOP, T for Tango, I for India, T for Tango, A for Alpha, shoptita.com. And you just, in the search bar, you can just put Windrush and all the merchandise will come up. Or you can just go directly to categories. And at the bottom, you will find Windrush Act merchandise. Please have a browse, and if you could support the cause, all the cost to some of the cost towards it goes to the Windrush Act, and all prices include delivery, and they're very reasonably priced. So if you could just visit the website, please, and share with your friends. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that, Mimi. So you've got T-shirts, you've got hoodies, you've got other merchandise available. They're all displayed on the website. You can choose the color. There are already a choice of colors. And as Mimi said, it's all inclusive of postage, the price. So please, let people know that this merchandise exists, and try and support this. Do purchase your own, as well as for other friends and family members. Thank you very much. So we've reached the end of our Sunday chat. We've just gone over by 7 minutes, but our next session will be we said the second and last Sunday of each month. So do make note, you remember, second and last Sunday of each month.
Next one's on the 28th. 28th of
There you are. Yes. So the end of the month, the last one is the 28th. So we'll be back here. And please share the information. Please tell people about this platform. This platform is designed to help you understand the Windrush compensation scheme. Not everybody understands the scheme. It's focused specifically to help you to make sure that you understand the scheme. Roland, we've mentioned the fact that a lot of Asian and African don't know about the scheme. A lot of Commonwealth countries don't know they're part of the scheme. So, again, the Home Office have 65 countries that is part of the scheme, and there are only 56 Commonwealth countries. The rest is the British Overseas Protective. So there are 65 in total. Again, tell people about what's been said today. The recording is out, so people who missed the session can find this recording and they can go through and listen to what's being presented. All our session will now be available so that people can follow and re-listen again. So again, please tell people about that. So thank you very much for your contribution and your time this afternoon, and we look forward to see you and hear from you very soon. And again, look in the chat for the contact information, both telephone number, email address, website. It's all there in the chat, including Mimi's website for merchandise. Okay, so thank you. You can now go in the kitchen now and start preparing your Sunday meal. I'll be doing that shortly. Thank you very much. Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. I will now end the chat in 1 minute in case you want to take any notes or any telephone number or anything like that.
Yeah. Stop the recording, but just leave for the chat for a bit.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do it.